Hello and welcome. Every single medicine in your cabinet, whether it's for a headache or something far more serious, has survived an absolutely incredible journey. It's this multi-stage gauntlet of research and testing, and it's all designed to answer two really basic but incredibly important questions. Just think about that for a second. Your doctor hands you a prescription for something new. You're putting an immense amount of trust in the system. But what exactly is that system? Well, it all boils down to the meticulous, step-by-step process of clinical trials. And that's exactly what we're going to break down today. So here's the plan. We're going to follow a potential new medicine on its entire journey. We'll start with its very first cautious steps into human testing, then move through these increasingly demanding trials that are designed to prove its worth, all the way to the final verdict. And you'll see, the story doesn't even stop there. Okay, so before a drug even gets near a person, it goes through years of what we call preclinical testing in labs, often on animals. But once it's finally ready for human trials, it has to run this gauntlet. And each of these steps is its own separate trial with a very, very specific question it has to answer before it can ever dream of moving on to the next one. All right, let's start at the very beginning. We're talking about the earliest, the smallest, and the most cautious steps in human testing. And at this point, the absolute number one non-negotiable priority is safety. So you might not have even heard of a phase 0 trial. It's a relatively new thing, and it's actually optional. Now, the goal here isn't to cure anything, not yet. It's really all about efficiency. It's kind of a fail-fast approach. Before a company pours millions of dollars into development, they just want a quick check. Does this molecule even behave in a human body the way our lab test said it would? And as you can see here, the key goal is testing something called pharmacokinetics, or PK for short. That's just a fancy way of describing the drug's journey through the body. How is it absorbed? Where does it go? How does the body break it down and get rid of it? By using a teeny tiny microdose, we're talking like 1/100th of a real dose, on just a handful of healthy volunteers, scientists can get this data with almost no risk. The participants get no direct benefit, but they help weed out unpromising drugs early, which saves a ton of time and money down the road. Okay, so after all that preclinical work and maybe a quick phase 0 study, we arrive at the big one, phase 1. This is the first major step. It's often called the first-in-human study, and its mission is crystal clear: figure out if this thing is safe. The focus here is absolutely laser sharp: safety and tolerability. We're not trying to see if the drug works yet, we just want to know what it does to a healthy human body. A small group of about 20 to 100 volunteers are monitored incredibly closely to find what's called the maximum tolerated dose. That's the highest amount you can give someone without causing really bad side effects. And notice it says open label. That just means there are no secrets. Both the researchers and the participants know exactly what drug and what dose is being given. So, how do they actually find that safe dose? Well, they do it very, very carefully. In what's called a single ascending dose study, one group gets a really low dose. If they're all okay, a new group gets a slightly higher dose, and on it goes. Then there's the multiple ascending dose study, where people get several low doses to see how the drug builds up in the body over time. It's this really slow, methodical process to find that safety sweet spot. And just remember, at this stage, we are still dealing with a very small, very controlled group of people. This super careful, small-scale approach is the foundation for everything that comes next. We have to nail this part before we can even begin to ask the next big question. Okay, so once a safe dosage range is established, we get to enter phase 2. And this is where the entire game changes. The fundamental question shifts from, is it safe, to the one we've all been waiting for. Does this thing actually work? Right, so this is the first time the drug is actually tested for what scientists call efficacy. You can think of it as the proof of concept stage. We are looking for the very first real piece of evidence that the drug has the effect we want it to have on the disease it's targeting. And to do that, we have to move on from healthy volunteers to actual patients. So the big takeaway here is the shift in both the goal and the participants. The primary goal is now effectiveness, and the study group is now 100 to 300 patients who actually have the condition. And to make sure the results aren't biased, these studies are often placebo-controlled and blinded. That means some patients get the real drug while others get an inactive sugar pill or placebo. And crucially, in a single-blind study, the patients have no idea which one they're getting. Now, phase 2 is often split into two parts. You can think of phase 2A as being kind of exploratory. It's like a pilot study to get an initial feel for whether it works and to really nail down the perfect dosage. Then, phase 2b is the pivotal stage. That's designed to confirm that yes, the drug works well at that chosen dose and the side effects are manageable. So you can see the scale has increased pretty significantly. We've gone from a maximum of about 100 healthy volunteers in phase 1 to as many as 300 actual patients. This bigger group gives us a much clearer picture of the drug's effectiveness and its most common short-term side effects. Now, if a drug shows real promise in phase 2, it gets to advance to what I like to call the final boss of clinical trials, phase 3. This is by far the largest, most rigorous, and most expensive phase of them all. The goal now is to definitively prove that the drug is not just effective, but that its benefits truly outweigh its risks in a large and diverse population. At this point, it is all about confirming the therapeutic benefit. The exploratory work is over. This is about generating rock-solid, definitive proof on a massive scale. This is the evidence that regulatory bodies like the FDA in the United States need to see before they will even consider approving a drug for the public. This slide really highlights the incredible scale and complexity we're talking about now. We're confirming efficacy, sure, but we're also meticulously monitoring all adverse drug reactions. And to really prove its value, the new drug is often tested against the current gold standard treatment, the best option that's already out there. And look at this. To eliminate bias from absolutely everyone, these trials are typically double-blind. That means neither the patients nor the doctors know who is getting the new drug. It's a huge undertaking, which is why a failure at this late stage can be absolutely devastating for a company. And just look at that jump in the numbers. Wow. We're now talking about hundreds and often thousands of patients in different cities, sometimes in different countries, all around the world. This massive sample size is absolutely critical for catching less common side effects and for confirming that the good results we saw in phase 2 hold up in a much larger, more diverse, real-world population. So after years, sometimes more than a decade of testing, all the data from thousands of patients is finally compiled. All of that work, all of that money, all of that hope has led to this single moment, submitting the results for the final verdict. But here's the thing. Even after a drug is approved and it finally makes its way to your local pharmacy, the story is not over, not by a long shot. The learning and the monitoring process actually continues for as long as that drug is in use. So that whole data package is submitted for an intense review by regulatory bodies. If they agree that the benefits outweigh the risks, the drug gets approved. But the work doesn't stop. This kicks off what we call phase 4, or post-marketing surveillance. See, now that the drug is being used by potentially millions of people in the real world, not just a few thousand in a controlled trial, these ongoing studies are crucial for tracking long-term safety, for finding rare side effects that might only show up in a huge population, and sometimes even for finding new and unexpected uses for the medication. So there you have it. From a single molecule in a lab to a medicine used by millions of people, this gauntlet of clinical trials is the system that underpins our trust in modern medicine. It's a process built on data and incredible diligence, but it's powered by people. And it really makes you think. Behind every single data point, there's a patient or a volunteer who made all of that knowledge possible.